In this week's episode, I aim to present you with the materials that you can use to work on an oil painting day in and day out. So touch dry oil paintings in 24 hours. Welcome to the Tools for Success. And the most important tool in your arsenal are going to be your oil paints. So we have FASTMATTE Titanium White, Burnt Umber, Permanent Alizarin Crimson, Cadmium Red, Yellow Ochre, Nickel Yellow, Sap Green, Ultramarine Blue, and Ivory Black. And we're going to just use regular old mineral spirits. The information to the specific brand of mineral spirits and the palette that I'm using and the brushes will be listed in the description box down below. So I'm just thinning out the paint a little bit to get my drawing color ready. Notice to the top left it said Pixels Royalty Free Images instead of this week our model is so-and-so. Due to the ongoing pandemic, I haven't really been able to travel and paint with other artists and take pictures. So Pixels is a royalty-free site that allegedly is for artists to promote their artwork, so create images from Pixels. No, Pixels not paying me to make this announcement. I'm just letting you know, and I'm going to have information in the description box down below. So if you are in need of photo references, you can definitely feel free to check that out. And if you're new to this channel, these type of episodes vary in the way that they are filmed. Sometimes I'll do paint-alongs, other times I'll do tutorial voiceover style. This one's going to be tutorial voiceover style. Those involve much more editing, and so the video is a little bit shorter and a little bit faster to the point. So now let me get to the point. So I'm just using odorless mineral spirits and no other medium. So right now I'm just mixing my first flesh color here. So I used the cadmium red and the sap green first, and then a little bit of burnt umber and ultramarine blue. So this is going to be more for a shadow note, so a shadow type of color. The brushes that I'm using are bristle brushes, Robert Simmons brushes, but don't worry, all of that information will be typed in the description box down below. Now, where was I getting at? The main topic of this episode is tools for success, and there's an interesting caveat with oil paints that they take forever to dry, even when you have fast drying materials. And so this combo that I'm using here is a combination of colors that actually achieves the touch dryness overnight. So lately I've been able to work on paintings day in and day out with this combo. Later on I will add Liquin Original to the mix, and this was the first day I was working on this painting. I was actually coming down with a really bad cold this day, so I didn't really my mind wasn't there, and I kind of forgot to put the Liquin. But the important thing is to introduce a color palette and a set of materials to you that I have found to be very effective. So these colors do have the ability to dry overnight. They are touch dry overnight. The important thing is the mineral spirits ratio that you're using. So at this point I've already done my umber sketch, and now I'm filling in the large masses. So the way that I started this painting was just to go right in with color and fill in the dark masses, starting with the darkest darks first. So working my way around the outside perimeter of the face. Now as you see, the FASTMATTE titanium white is a rather thick, almost chalky kind of titanium white, but it seems to want to dry almost within a matter of hours, so you're able to work very directly with the oil paint, given that you have, I'd say, about maybe 3% at the most odorless mineral spirits with the paint. If you want it to dry, touch dry overnight, I have been experimenting with my own studio paintings and found that even with thicker applications of flesh tone, as you're seeing here, with the white that I'm using. And then once you add the Liquin to it, it is very much something that you can continue to build and build and build as you paint every single day. Now I should probably talk about another thing. If you're new, or if you've been watching these videos, following these videos for a while, last week I was kind of sick. Um, I came down with a pretty bad cold. No need to worry, it wasn't coronavirus. I'm pretty much 95% better now. And I wrote on the community section that I couldn't complete this video last week, so thank you all for your kind words. I just went over to the community section and read all of the wonderful words of encouragement. I'm feeling much, much better. And now, I really hope that all of you are doing well out there. I know that the situation is extremely difficult with the ongoing pandemic. And with this episode, I want to present you with the very same materials and very same technique that I've been using in my own studio paintings. Now, for the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, notice that we just blocked those in with the dark shadow color. So just the burnt umber and the burnt umber, the sap green, and pretty much all the colors that you see in the middle tones. And keep in mind that the burnt umber is also a very fast drying color. So in my first layer, I'm relying very heavily on it, and I just mixed black and white and a little bit of flesh tone, and that's going to give us the color of the sclera. So I was drawing with color with the beginning of this painting, as opposed to doing a linear drawing and then transferring it over, just because I knew that this combination would allow me to continue to work day in and day out. I didn't know that I would get really sick around this point, but the other studio paintings that I have been working on, especially since I've been recovering, have been drying overnight. And if you're curious about those studio paintings that I'm talking about, those are figure paintings. I can't really show them on YouTube, but you can see them on Instagram. I've been posting on Instagram again since I've recovered. So here we have the little plumb line. So I was looking at the corner of the tear duct from one eye to the corner of the nose. And I'm kind of creating a linear relationship to how far the nose goes to the left of the screen. And now we're starting to put in the little indication of the nostril. Now notice the kind of how much I'm relying on the burnt umber in these darker accents. That is what will help these paintings dry overnight. And again, I encourage you to check out my Instagram. Literally minutes before I started doing the voiceover for this episode, I posted an image of a studio painting. I've been working, I think, 3 or 4 consecutive days now since my recovery of the cold. And again, most of us are going to be at home for a long period of time, with everything shut down. So take these colors as a set of tools for success that you can paint on a single painting day in and day out. And you can purchase these colors, these types of materials that I'm using, directly online. You don't necessarily have to use Amazon, though I will have Amazon links in the description box down below for you to shop there, but you can purchase from Jerry's Artorama, you can purchase from Michael's, all kinds of stores. You can purchase these colors online. They're not that difficult to find. They're not as expensive as other brands, but they allow you, I would say, a working window of about 4 hours per painting. As you see that I'm starting to raise the value a little bit. A little bit of the cadmium red mixed with the white gives me a much more pinkish hue. Now, it's implied in the name with the titanium white fast matte, but I didn't really think that it was too matte of a color until the layers, or until the layer started to dry. Oil paints tend to kind of sink in quite a bit, especially when you're working on an acrylic ground, which is what we're working on here. This is a acrylic cotton canvas ground. But again, that Gamblin's FASTMATTE titanium white dried very true to the colors that I was painting when the colors were wet. So that's why I think this is very much an optimal combination, and not necessarily something you'd be able to get out of student grade oil paints, nor the water mixable oil paints. And again, not hating on water mixable oil paints, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that I've come to accept that you kind of need a solvent at a certain point to help spread out the pigment throughout the surface. If you're not concerned about the drying times and you're concerned about the health aspects, you can of course use the solvent-free the water mixables. Now a little bit of the cadmium red and the odorless mineral spirits. We're going to start to mix up a little bit of an off pinkish color. So I'm mixing directly into the middle of the color value web. See how the paint's already starting to settle onto the palette. But in any case, I'm just trying to get a kind of off pinkish color that we'll use to draw out the colors for the lips. And as this is voiceover, I do know that I can kind of speak in the same tone for quite a while, so we're going to get to some clips that I'll let play much longer, and I won't speak quite as much in those clips, so just so you know, I am going to change the rate of narration here and there, since this is a little bit of a longer YouTube video, I guess, than most videos. So now you see how I'm drawing out the contours for the lips with that off pinkish color. I did ultimately get the angle of the mouth wrong at this point in this stage, but I ended up correcting it a little bit later off camera. So even the reds being one of the slowest drying colors, even the reds dry pretty fast with a little bit of influence from the FASTMATTE titanium white. Now remember, none of these companies are sponsoring me, so if it sounds like it's paid promotion, trust me, it's not paid promotion. So we're using a little bit more burnt umber and alizarin permanent, and we're just mixing one big batch of color here on the palette. Put the brush down, different brush, a little bit of the yellow ochre mixed right onto the side of the flush tones that we have on the palette here. I also decided to use my studio palette, so I call that palette 9 to 5. So that's, I'll also write that down in the description box, or if I forget, it's made by the brand called New Wave. So that is the New Wave, I believe it's the New Wave Confident Expressionist. That's the name of the palette that I'm using. It's just the most ergonomic palette that I have, the most comfortable to use palette that I have. But in any case, I just put those two colors that I pre-mixed on my palette onto the painting. The dark brownish type of color was for the cast shadow underneath of the nose, and the kind of warm brownish color was for the halftones alongside the face. So now you see how I'm starting to develop the drawing for this painting a little bit backwards. Usually you'll see me do an underpainting or a transfer drawing first and then develop an underpainting. That is for a painting that I'm going to continue to develop. But with this one, I kind of just decided to go right into color. And that's actually a lot more fun, in my opinion, than spending a very, very long time on a drawing and then carefully kind of filling it in with underpainting color and then very carefully starting to layer onto it. It produces more realistic results, but I feel like this is a little bit more fun. And on Instagram, I've had a lot of questions on why I tend to use that brown type of color in the beginning and if it's even necessary. And the answer is no, it's not necessary, but it helps with the drawing time. So the drawing time is essential, in my opinion, when it comes to handling oil paintings. In particular, knowing how fast your painting is going to dry so you can continue to work on it or alternate in between other paintings, especially for those of us that are going to be spending much more time creating paintings. And of course, I can't forget the kind of the significance of the brushes that you use. I'm kind of a little bit contradictory when it comes to brushes and brush handling. Um, Notice the brush that I'm using here. Most people would consider that a piece of garbage, that brush that I'm using, but it's a brush that I've had for several years. I believe it's a um, Plaza brand brush. It once had a distinct shape to the brush. I think it was, I believe it was a round, like a pointy round brush, and now look at it. It's kind of just kind of a flat, almost makeup looking brush. And I'm of the mindset that if you have the highest, or if you have high quality paints, just quality oil paints, you can almost finger paint and create amazing results. I think that the quality of the brushes, so long as you buy artist grade, um, and from brands like Plaza brand, Princeton, or Robert Simmons brushes. I'm just listing out brushes I have experience with. You're gonna be all right. The important thing is the medium and the type of paints that you use, in my opinion, when it comes to the tools for success here. And as well, excuse me, as well as the canvas, I will admit that this is kind of a cheaper grade canvas, but the canvas doesn't really matter so much because you can always layer it with gesso if you're concerned about the quality of it. And again, I'll have the gesso that I would recommend in the description box down below. And now it's time to switch gears. So now I've switched to a much slower clip. All of the footage is in real time, of course, but this one clip is going to play for a little bit over 7 minutes. So if you usually scroll through the footage, um, you can feel free to scroll through this because I'll be a little bit more quiet for the next 7 minutes or so. So I'm going to be slowing down the rate of narration so I don't fill up the episode with too much talking at the same pace. But of course, I will have a few little statements as to what I'm doing. So I'm adding a little bit more of the white into the lighter planes of the face. I usually like to work a little bit lighter, especially in the first layer of a painting. And I should also mention, I was I'm 100% sure I forgot to post the picture from the last episode that I uploaded, but I do have a Facebook photo reference group where I post the images. Um, since I was kind of sick last week, I didn't really remember to post the picture, but I will upload the picture to my Facebook photo reference group for the last YouTube video before this one. And then for this one, as I mentioned, it's from Pixels, that royalty-free site. I'll probably be using it more and more because they do claim that it's royalty-free and that I won't get penalized or demonetized for using the picture. So I'll probably end up using them a little bit more often. But I'll also have links to the pictures on my Facebook photo reference group. I do remember reading something in the policy of Pixels saying that you can't repost the same unedited image of the photographs that they have. So I'm going to post links to the Pixel site on the Facebook photo reference group rather than posting the exact picture. So you can go to the Pixel site and download the high quality images at your own disposal. Have them at your own disposal. And I want to give another shout out to the viewers that read the post that I uploaded last week um, to the community section of my YouTube video. Again, thank you all so much for your words of encouragement. I reassure you that my health is much better, and it was a cold. Um, since the gyms ended up shutting down around my area, I was going out running in the cold, and that's not the smartest thing to do. But I assure you, it was the common cold, and I'm about 95, 98, pretty much nearly 100% recovered. And for those of you that are like me, that are having to spend a lot of time, um, isolated because everything is closed, I hope that these videos, especially the older ones that I have, um, are giving you something to look forward to, something to, make your lives a lot better. Of course, I'm diverging. I actually time myself as I diverge from the main topic. So now I'm going to get back to the original topic of the painting video. So again, back to the tools for success. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't use a medium yet at this point, but that was by mistake. Usually I would be using a medium, just not as much of it in the first layer. So remember, Liquin Original is pretty much your fastest drying medium that you can use for you to continue to work on your paintings day in and day out. I will also have a link to my preferred medium. Liquin is not my preferred medium. I actually prefer using one titled Neo McGilp, but I'll talk about that, or I've talked about that before. I've spoken of it before. But this combo is my favorite combo of materials to use, just because it's a drag. I find it to be a drag to wait for oil paintings to dry. I hate waiting for paintings to dry. And this combination is something I've been trying to find forever. Just to find a combination of materials with oil paints that dry the next day. That's something I've been looking for a long time. And even with all the reds and all the pinks that you see that I used here, I do the same thing in my studio work, perhaps even with more color than this. That is more of the red, still using the same color palette, but they still dry overnight, touch dry overnight, which is a wonderful thing. I'm just adding a little bit of a lighter plane underneath of the cheekbone, right across the corner of the mandible. Alright, here we are in the next day, and I remembered to put the Liquin Original Medium. So now, pretty much, this is a week later, after I was, in recovery. I had been working on other paintings, studio paintings off camera, even though I was sick. I was still trying to work a little bit. And it turns out that this combo works the best when you combine it with a Liquin Original. So again, the FASTMATTE titanium white from Gamblin, and pretty much all of the other colors were Winsor, and the medium is Winsor. I believe it's Winsor's. Liquin. Either way, I'm sure you've heard of Liquin before. The Liquin Original. The next day, all of this ended up drying, and the next day, all I ended up doing was a touch-up. So you won't even notice the transition from one day to the next, just because the drying time and the paint handling and all of that. And the colors, again, they're colors that I've left on my palette. pretty much overnight. Usually I'll put them in the freezer, but if I'm going to be working day in and day out on paintings, again, one of the biggest things for success in pretty much anything is consistency. So if you're able to do this more often than not, you can pretty much just leave the colors on your palette. I promise you, with the exception of burnt umber and the fast matte white, they won't really dry too much overnight, so it'll allow you to keep working. So I'm using a little bit of a brownish color, so the burnt umber with a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And again, I reiterate, I left these colors on the palette. The way this palette looks, it looks this way just because I allow the colors to dry on the corner, just because I continue to work on paintings day in and day out. And again, I like to name things, so that palette is named 9 to 5. In any case, now you're seeing me start to fill in the dark masses of the brown for the hair. And remember that a painting is not necessarily a replica of a photograph. Even a more realistic painting does not need to be a perfect photographic rendition of the model. I think that the photographer had an amazing skill in their craft. So let photography be photography, in my opinion, and let painting be painting. So I'm not going to make this painting look 100% like the photograph. That's just not my aesthetic. And now you're seeing I'm combining that darker color with that kind of warmer brown. Not so many different colors in the hair, but you still get the kind of brunette type of hair feeling. So a little bit of the ivory black and the fast matte white and the ultramarine blue. And now we're putting in the kind of grayish color for the shirt. So with the clothing, I don't really end up putting too much, just kind of using kind of thinner combination. So there you see the Liquin, the white. The paint is pretty thin. There has been a lot of the odorless mineral spirits in the mixture there. So just evenly spreading out the paint. You see this in a lot of classical painting where the clothing is kind of left to vignette. So it's not really as finished as the the face or the still lives or anything around it. Now we're going to put in some lighter accents for the hair. And again, just using a similar color to the flesh tone. So a little tip for you with the hair, especially with brunette hair. Try to stick to a type of flesh tone color and be careful not to make the colors too cold for the hair. And now as a final little touch, we're going to put in the freckles. But remember, freckles are going to be softer. So we're going to soften the freckles with a dry brush, a dry synthetic brush, just so that it kind of settles nicely into the surrounding flesh tones. That being said, I really, really hope that all of you are staying safe. I hope that you're all safe during this coronavirus outbreak. My heart goes out to all of you. I truly, truly do feel like we're all going to get through this, that this is going to end at some point, and there is going to be a future after this outbreak. So let's all stick together. Let's do the best that we can, enjoy our lives, and be respectful to everyone around us. Again, I wish you the best in all of your artwork. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you would like to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you would like to support this channel even more, I have a Patreon account, and links to all of that will be in the description box down below. And it's now time for our new patron shoutouts. So thank you so much, Paulina Piekarskaya, Walter Demak, Catalina, and The Flow. Thank you all so much for your support on my Patreon account. It truly, truly means the world to me. And those of you that are on my Patreon and are waiting for the mentor tier critiques for the month of March, don't worry, there was a delay in because of my sickness, but those will be out by the end of the month, if not the first week of the next month. So again, thank you all so much for your support on my Patreon account. It means so much to me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.